We got legendary power skating coach and skating coach of multiple NHL teams, hundreds of players. Is that correct, Robby? Hundreds of players. You've coached all over Europe. You're a skating and skills specialist on the NHL Network, and you're here with us from sunny California here in the Rock and Hockey Show. Welcome.
Thank you, guys. I'm actually in Phoenix, Arizona right now.
it's still sunny. we have 60.
It's even more sunny.
We're 64 and rainy for the next month, so it should be good.
Yeah, now, Robby, you'll be moving here in no time, I'm sure.
I've been to Arizona once, and that was an awesome place. I love it. I won't go off on a tangent there. I was in Sonoma. You ever been to Sonoma?
It's up Sedona.
Sedona, yes.
Yeah, and Flagstaff. It's beautiful up there.
Yeah, it is awesim. So,
who's the third guy with the Royals jersey on?
I know.
That's Becker the Checker.
Becker the Checker.
Becker the Checker. Yeah.
Have you ever actually hit one of those checking dummies before?
Oh, I don't hit anything. I never hit anything.
Those guys are tough, man. They worked me over.
Yeah. Robby, what I love is that, and obviously we like to have fun in the show, and I'm going to rip on myself a little bit here too, but is that you're still in the trenches after all these years teaching skating all the time. I love that. And I started teaching skating and skills probably almost 30 years ago. And I think they had just invented the wheel, RJ, when I first started skating. And I think George Washington might have been in one of my first clinics, but I remember when I started doing it, I wanted to learn as much as I could. And I remember seeing your brochure, which I still love your logo, by the way, with the guy skate lightning fast. I think it's awesome. You've been doing skating stuff for a long time. That's awesome. How are you feeling? Good?
Which is incredible since I'm only 38 years old, that I've been doing this also over 30 years.
That's what I thought.
No, I'm feeling good. I love it. I'm passionate about it. And you can't do anything that you're not passionate about. That's the key to any profession you're in. Take it seriously and try to be the best you can. But yeah, I've been doing it over 30 years also.
And you still love getting out there in the trenches and working with kids?
Love it. You saw a little bit of it when I was in Rochester a few weeks ago. I treat it like like the first year or two I've ever done it, but B, I treat it like I wish I had this when I was that age, and that's the way I approach every single time I'm on the ice.
Well, that's awesome. Now you've worked with teams in Germany, Switzerland, Sweden. Do you speak all those languages?
No, I speak a little German to get by. I haven't been there in a few years because of the pandemic. But I do more stuff here in the States and North America. But I was going about 4 or 5 times a year the last few years, too, until 20, obviously, to Sweden and to England and to France and to Germany. And the great thing about Sweden, well, the Scandinavian countries in general, and Norway too, you don't have to speak their language. They speak perfect English, better than we do here.
Oh, really?
I would put money on that. I would bet.
Yes, when I was, it's funny, when I was teaching in Sheffield, England, in London, outside of, in Great Britain a couple of years ago, I'd understand what they were saying. And they're speaking English, but the Swedes and the Norwegians, I understood perfectly.
Who was don't they have a minor, I shouldn't say minor. Don't they have a pro team in Sheffield there?
They do. And they have a big hockey association, and they packed the camp. It was great. Just since the pandemic, I haven't been able to get back, which is a little bit of a bummer. But I think I'll be going back to Norway and Sweden in December. We'll see. Let's see if this holds.
You'll see what happens right over there. That's not an interesting place right now.
So. Now, Robby, listen, as long as I've been teaching power skating, every time you step on the ice and the kids see that it's power skating coach coming out, oh, we got to do power skating again. Can't we just scrimmage? Do you ever get that? Because I hope it's not just me that gets that.
Maybe. Well, for my camp, it's a little different, Dave, because they've pre-signed up. So you already have a vested interest, The parents have.
We should do that. We should trick them next time.
Yeah, no, they know that they're signing up for something. But yeah, sure. And I get that with pro players sometimes too. My buddy Bobby Ryan, who just retired, a great NHL player and was a student of mine since he was a kid. And then he got me with the Ducks too when I was with the Ducks. But Bobby Bobby would come out and ask, "Robby, pucks today, let's stick handle." I go, "No, I've seen you skate. We got to work on that." And he ended up being a great skater. He worked very hard at it, played a long time.
Dave's doing our our Doodle Bug Spring League, which is like 4 and 5 year olds. Like they're not even mites yet. And I was just talking to Dave about something beforehand. The kids are just warming up. This kid skates over right to Dave. He goes, "Coach, can we get pucks out now? Can we get pucks out?" Before it even started, I looked right at him. I go, "Now there's no pucks the whole practice." It's like these kids.
I'm actually a big believer in pucks. I do. I'm sure you guys are too. I was watching some of your stuff, Dave, but I put pucks in everything I do, everything. But we always start without and try to get their hands and their feet and their legs and their body, certainly the posture of the body, in the right position, and then the puck becomes part of that, as opposed to the other way around, where you're fighting the puck.
Yeah, I find that the puck is a big distraction when you're trying to teach something.
It can be if they're messing around with it, for sure.
Right.
But it's also distraction if you don't have your hands in the right spot or your stick in the right spot. It can be. It's way less of a distraction if you get the technique down right, and then suddenly you throw the puck in. It's a lot easier, which is the whole point of what we're trying to teach.
So, Robby, tell us a little bit about growing up and what led you to do what you do. Now, I read a little bit that you were happy with your skating. What's that?
I will. Is that an AC/DC shirt you're wearing? Is that what that is?
It is an AC/DC shirt because this is called the Rock and Hockey Show. So it's about music and hockey.
But look at his hat, though. It's like,
can he do like a Brian Johnson fire thing? Are you able to do an impersonation of that?
Yeah.
No.
Wait, was that his name? Did I get his name right? That was it.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, that's too great. I love it.
All right, I'm sorry. What was the question again?
No, that's a
growing up.
The question was, growing up, what led you to become the power skating instructor that you are?
Well, you don't go to college for this job that I do. And I was actually a film major. I stopped playing a little bit and then came back to it and was playing on a ACHA team, club college hockey.
Right. Yeah.
And my brother was going to go back east and play at Northeastern. And I grew up playing with good players. I mean, my two line mates made the NHL, Craig Cox and Matt Hervey. You remember Big Craig, the big tough guy.
Yep.
But Craig was a great player growing up too. And my brother was a good player. He's going to play at Northeastern, but he was not the fastest skater of all times. And so my dad, in his infinite wisdom, flew out a skating instructor to work with us. And she said to me, "Gee, I don't think you're a very good player, but you sure can see this."
There you go.
I won't mention who it was who said that to me, but pretty obvious. And for whatever reason, I can just see it. I just, Dave, you do too. And I could see it at top speed, and I could see it with the world's best. For whatever reason. So that's how I got into it. And then I always wished, once I learned how to skate properly myself from her, and from teaching my brother and teaching other kids locally in that first year or so, and this was many years ago. I always thought to myself, geez, I wish I had this when I was 7, 8, 9, younger, maybe even, or older, just someone to correct my technique, because then I could have worked the right way. And you're making, perfect practice makes perfect. So if you're practicing the wrong way all the time, that's what you're reinforcing. Yep. And so I take that passion that we talked about, passion, to the ice.
That's awesome.
That makes sense. I'm passionate about wishing I had it. I would have been a much better player, and obviously a much better skater.
Yeah, I tell people all the time that I didn't really start working on my skating till I was playing college hockey.
Exactly.
So when I'm working with young players, I'm like, man, you guys are 10 years ahead of when I started working on my skating.
That's right.
And it's such
or even more. I mean, these kids are starting at 4 and 5 and 6, which they should, because it builds your hips a different way when you start early, and you see the difference. So.
Well, and that's some of the issue too, is some of these kids, all they want to do is the Michigan at 5 years old. And it's like, that's great. Now try getting away from the net and try to back check, and like they're not even in the play because they don't even want to. They just can't. Like, skating is sometimes the last thing on some of these kids' minds.
Yeah.
But it's
it certainly will catch up.
Yeah, definitely.
It certainly will catch up. But Dave, that's the way to make it. That's why you have to make it fun too, like you're referencing. You have to make it fun because otherwise they turn off to it too. because it can be drudgery and it can be just repetition. If you come back to my camps, which most people come back many, many times because it is repetition, but it's repetition doing it the right way. But you'll see almost this. I almost do the same first drill since I do the same thing with the NHL guys. When I get an NHL player, I do the same first drill to get them in the right posture almost every time. And it's nothing that complicated. I've shown it on NHL Network, actually, when I went out with Alex Tanguay, and you can just watch those online. When I go on the ice with him, it's my favorite drill. So it is repetition. It can be a little bit monotonous, but then you got to try to add in the fun also.
Yeah. Anything notable working with some of the great players that you've worked with that anything funny or notable, like, Sydney Crosby or anybody that you worked with and just they're like, wow, that stuff works, or anything funny that you could share with us?
It's funny you bring up Sydney because Sydney started with me when he was 14. His then advisor, who is now his longtime agent, Pat Passan, brought him to me. And I'll never forget the Pat. Sydney has such an unusual name. So most of the time, I don't even remember. Like guys will come up to me and say, oh, my gosh, I worked with you when I was at your camp when I was 10. It was like Frankie Vetrano. He was on the ice in Boston. And I was doing a camp in Boston. And he came skating over and said, Robby, I have your jersey in my closet. Now, I didn't remember, obviously. He was 10, So. And I hadn't seen him. So I get that a lot. But Sydney's name was so unusual that I remember. Plus, Pat came up to me. Now, this is everybody knows who Pat is. He represents half the best players in the NHL. And this was a guy at the time that had Brett Hull and Luc Robitaille. And he says to me, hey, this is the best 14-year-old I've ever seen. Now, that also, sticks with you when you hear that. And, but he had skating issues. Not that he wasn't strong on his skates. He was. There were posture-related issues that were going to cost him later on. And that's what we worked on over and over and over. And that kid at 14 was the last kid off the ice. The most questions. And that carried right over to when he came to me as his draft year. Right. He did every year up until 17, I believe. When he was 17 years old. So that would have been 2000, whatever, 4 or 3. But last guy off the ice, most video questions. And I will relate to you a great story about Sydney. Was my older boy, who ended up playing at Connecticut College, was maybe 8, 9, 10 at the time. And he's on the ice with me after. I had a little extra time and he jumped on and he, Sydney Crosby, didn't know any of them. Sydney was 17. And we'd been hearing the stories. We knew he was going to be the first pick. And Sydney, instead of leaving and going back to his hotel or going to have lunch, hung out on the bench for 30 minutes, throwing Ryan pucks, giving him some tips, things like that. It was awesome. I don't know why he's so polarizing. He's such a nice guy.
I like him.
Yeah, I think some of the people don't like when they still equate the first 5 years of the NHL when as soon as he got touched, he would make those expressions, go right to the refs to now. And he's not the same kid that he was back then.
Close. And everybody
not close, but I mean it's
but I don't know, that stuck with him. It's like,
but you take guys like you imagine like these guys nowadays that they're talking about, some of these guys that are coming up, but you take these guys I would love to see Crosby get drafted now and not be allowed to get touched like the McKinnons and the McDavids and Dreisaitl's and Marners and Matthews. You imagine what he could do now in this. I mean, they grew up in a clutch and grab style hockey where you had to be strong on your skate.
Yeah. Right in the beginning. And it started to open up a little bit just as he was into his about 4th or 5th year, right?
Yeah. But I mean, like you said, you have to be strong on your pace.
Sometimes, though, he's a tough player.
Yeah. No. So, Robby, what advice can you give to young players out there about their skating? Anything in particular, that one piece of advice that you could give?
Yes. Get your posture right. Always get your posture right. That's where it starts. And that's any sport. I've got just because I'm here in Phoenix, it's reminding me, I've got Hank Haney's kid in my camp this weekend. And he was with me 2 weeks ago. And the famous golf instructor, Tiger's golf coach. Guy. Wonderful family, by the way. And their boy is a very, very good player, a young kid, 9 years old. He's going to be very good. But, if Hank's teaching Tiger or any great golfer it starts with posture. It starts with how you line your body up. And it could be I love playing tennis, and it's the same thing there. It's how you set your body up starts everything. So get to someone, get to my camps, get to you guys, and get in the right posture. That is the penultimate answer for skating. Once you do that, everything gets easier and works off of that.
Great. I always, my bit of advice that I tell pretty much everybody I work with is the day you pay attention to your skating is the day you become a better skater. So
100%.
that I can't
we have a unique sport. You know, every other sport, you if you can walk or run, you can play it. You might not be the best, but you can play it. Our sport, you have to learn a whole different skill just to play the sport, and it's not natural. And because skating is not a natural thing, and skating the proper way, certainly. Right. You know, you're talking about your hips. You cannot push out properly if your hips are super tight. And right. And everything we do, when you run or walk, you go straight line. Skating, you push. I'm going to try to show you here. You push out, as you guys know, but I'm showing your audience. You push out to the side. There's nothing else we really do that includes that. So your hips have to develop differently, and you've got to train your muscles to push to do something that's counterintuitive. You got to push away from your body, and it's not a natural movement. So right away, we're behind the 8 ball. If that
would explain my skating right there to the T. Well, so I grew up like 5 minutes from the hockey rink, but one county over where hockey wasn't a thing. So until I met Dave, and I was at the rink a year before I even put skates on. So
no kidding. Okay.
So
you pick it up as an adult?
I was 22, 23 when I started really skating, like in leagues and stuff. We have a good friend of ours who Dave actually gives me compliments about helping him teach kids. This guy, Bill Lucazonis.
Yeah.
And I joined his what he calls Zamboni classes. Yeah, you know Luke from when the last time you were at the rink. And but he has these adult Zamboni classes where if you're a mom or dad and you want to learn how to start skating. So I did those for 2 whole years. And then whenever I could, I got on the ice with Dave and his A-League All-Stars. And like I'd get skated around, but it made me better because I knew where to be on the ice. So even if I couldn't skate, I could be on the ice in the right spot. Eventually your stride becomes your stride. Mine's horrible.
Yeah, he's still hopeless, by the way, Robby, after all these years.
I have no hands. Like I played baseball, and we were talking about this. I could hit a curveball, but I cannot bat a puck out of the air to save my life, and that's coming straight at me, and I don't get it. But we were talking about this right.
That's muscle memory.
That's exactly where I was going. We were talking about this right before you got on. So I've read multiple spots where obviously power skating is something to do when the kids, probably between like that 10 and 14, it's a great time to do it because that's when you're developing your muscle memory.
That's right.
And then I read that it takes younger too. Yes. But I heard that it takes about like to adjust somebody's strides. So let's say when you were working with Crosby, it takes close to 1,000 strides to just get your muscle memory to stop what you were doing instinctively to change completely.
That's. I mean, I don't know how to quantify.
Right. I'm just saying, throwing a number there.
But I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot of hours and a lot of breaking of old habits, even for someone as great as him. Yeah. And when I was first hired by the Kings, now there weren't many of me in the league at that point. I was one of the first. Barry Melrose hired me in the early '90s, and my first class. And he goes, "Hey, you're out here with us today. I'm going fishing or golf, whatever he was doing." And he goes, and I got there. I assumed it was just going to be a couple tough guys or a couple guys from the AHL. And sure, I'm out there. It's like everybody but Gretzky and Curry. I was like Blake and Mike Robitaille or Tony Granato and Rick Tock. That whole class,
right?
Or that whole group that we had there, which was a great team, and a great group of guys. And they were out there going for it, but it's tough to break some of those habits. It takes years. Now, some guys get certain things quicker and some regress and then come forward. You step back before you step forward. But if you keep working on it the right way, eventually, especially as great an athletes as they are, they get it.
Right.
So
I agree. Well, listen, Robby, we could talk hockey forever, and hopefully get you back on the show again soon. But I appreciate you coming on. It's going to be our first show, by the way. So you are our inaugural guest.
for the
on the
podcast.
Rocket Hockey podcast show. So
I'm kicking it off. Huh?
Yeah.
Anytime, guys, anytime. And then if some of this stuff, if they want to make more sense, they can literally just go on, parents can go on YouTube or NHL.com and just put my name in, and they can watch all these NHL networks that you guys were referring to.
Yep.
And learn the proper posture and learn, because all those were, I mean, speaking of Hank Haney, I tried to set this up like the Golf Channel in a way where we were teaching how to do things. And as opposed to just say, here's the breakout, here's the great goal. It was like, how did they get there? How did they get there? So they can go on online and watch all these videos. They're all up there, and they can learn a lot from that, as well as, of course, skating with guys like you and skating with me and so forth. So I hope to see everybody soon. I'm going to be your way in the summer.
Yes, let us know when you're coming out, Robbie. Thank you so much.
Beautiful.
Anytime, guys.
We'll see you soon.
All right, take care, Rob.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye. So,
all right, Robbie Glantz, that was good.